So in Genesis 2:17, God says you will surely die, and that wasn't a lie.
Well, what God said would happen didn't happen.
A critical scholar tells you what the text says. A theologian will tell you what the text means. And a Bible teacher will draw from both resources in order to tell you how to make application of what is being declared in the text. Dan is not a theologian and he is not a teacher, not a Bible teacher. He's a critical scholar. So there's things you can learn from him, but whenever he comes to conclusions about the theology of the text, about what the text means, well, you take what he says with a grain of salt.
So really this is just a question of how you're going to characterize the fact that God said something would happen and it didn't happen.
So the question of that declaration, "In the day you eat of it, you will surely die," is this: is death the consequence inherent to the action? In other words, do they die because of the knowledge of good and evil? Or is that a declaration of punishment if they disobey? Because God is, after all, the creator and judge.
And that is going to have mostly to do with the presuppositions you're bringing to the text regarding the nature of God.
No, it has to do with the text itself and the nature of judgment and the nature of consequence and the nature of death itself. So in Genesis 2, God gives a divine command. The Lord God commanded Adam not to eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. In the day you eat of it, so that's the condition, if you eat of it, you will surely die. That's the punishment. That's the consequence. The consequence is attached to the divine command of what not to do. The fruit itself isn't toxic, and merely possessing the knowledge of good and evil does not itself cause death. Now, knowing to do evil and then acting upon that knowledge will result in condemnation, because God is a good judge and he is a holy judge, and he has declared that the breaking of his commandment leads to death. That's the certain consequence of disobeying or breaking God's commandments. Adam and Eve disobeyed God's commandment. God judges them, and his judgment is to cast them from the Garden of Eden, and he declares that man, in whom is the breath of life, will return to the dust. Now, obviously, God has a bigger plan than just kicking Adam and Eve out of the garden and letting them die. God is going to bring about a restoration. He's going to bring about salvation. But that's a whole nother topic.